Canto 10, Chapter 84, the Sage's Teachings at Kurukshetra, Text 30. Sri Narada Muni said, O Brahmanas, it is not so amazing that in his eagerness to know, Vasudeva has asked us about his ultimate benefit, for he considers Krishna a mere boy. Please repeat. Sri Narada Muni said, O Brahmanas, it is not so amazing that in his eagerness to know, Vasudeva has asked us about his ultimate benefit, for he considers Krishna a mere boy. Purport by Srila Prabhupada's disciples and followers. Srila Jiva Goswami relates Narada's thoughts. Sri Narada understood how Vasudeva, in line with his mood of pretending to be an ordinary householder, asks the sages about karma yoga, although he had already attained spiritual goals even great yogis and rishis cannot achieve. But Narada was still concerned that Vasudeva might create an awkward mood by treating Lord Krishna as a mere child in the presence of all the sages. Narada and the other sages felt obliged to maintain their attitude of reverence towards Lord Krishna. So how could they ignore him and presume to answer Vasudeva themselves? To avoid this embarrassment, Narada took this opportunity to remind everyone present of Sri Krishna's absolute supremacy. Namo Vishwarai Krishna Shnai Bhutare Srimate Bhaktimarga Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschachare Shatarini. Jai, Prabhu's work cutting the class a little short today because we have another Zoom class at 8:30 with Mauritian youth in Mauritius. Okay, so here we have an ongoing, continuous dialogue amongst the great sages. It was the meeting of the great minds, being the Brahmanas themselves, or sages. Vasudeva is there, Narada Muni is there, Krishna's there, and I'm sure there's a whole bunch of other people there. And Narada Muni's contribution is always very interesting. Here, he is simply reminding the Brahmanas and Vasudeva, as well as all of us, sincere seekers of the truth, that Krishna is not just an ordinary person. Avajananti Mangmuda Manasim Tanam Asritam. That's from chapter 9, that's 9:11. We looked at it last week. And from this shloka, we are to understand that Krishna is not just an ordinary bloke. He's not an ordinary dude or guy. He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that gets reiterated throughout this text, Srimad Bhagavatam, and so many others. It gets declared many, many times over. It's just a sheer reminder of the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. It is natural that Vasudeva will consider that Krishna is a mere boy because Vasudeva is Krishna's father. So just like we find parents, they can be very proud of their children and their achievements as they grow on into maturity. But for a parent, usually, and especially from the mother's side, it is often seen that the child will always be a child, will always be my baby. You know, an 87-year-old guy has a mother that's 104, and she said, "This is my baby." Actually, I met one woman. She's 104 years old in Nova Scotia, and she was interviewed by our film crew team from the National Film Board. I was traveling with them for 1 month, collectively. And at the tail end, like we started from the West Coast and we went to the east coast. And just before you hit Kanzo Causeway, which separates the mainland from Cape Breton, we stopped in to see a lady. She was 104 years old. And her daughter was there. She was 87. That's why I pulled out those figures out of that. She's 87. Now, the lady was 104. She had touched 3 centuries. Can you imagine that? And she was telling us what it was like when she was a girl growing up in that area. Of course, there was no Kanzo Causeway. There was no bridge. Everything was done by barge, right? Like a train taken over as well. And it was just interesting to see the 2 generations. The lady was 104. She was as sharp as a whip. She had poetry. She had written her own poetry. And she was, let's say, narrating it out for us. And she went on and on and on and on. And we were trying to get her to say, okay, it's okay, now we have to do some filming. She was a participant in the National Film Board's production. Was called The Longest Road, just because she was talking about the way it was. And then the Trans-Canada Highway came in and that changed the culture of the place. So anyways, there's something in the mind of all of us that never changes. We have a set idea about parents, even about ourselves. Do you sometimes think, I'm still 19, I'm 20? Do you think like that sometimes? That's not relevant to yourself. It's too close to where you are at. But sometimes we think we are still from way back. No. So we live in some kind of an illusion, and Vasudev maybe fall into that category. Vasudev is someone who falls into the category of Yoga Maya. Maya means illusion, that which is not real, or that which is surreal, you can say. And he's in Yoga Maya. Similarly, Arjuna was in Yoga Maya when he was put under the spell. As soon as he saw the people on the other opposing side of the Kauravas, he was immediately put into some kind of a darkness. He was spellbound. And we call that Yoga Maya. Everyone was under the Yoga Maya influence after Krishna was born, and Vasudeva, this same Vasudeva, carried Krishna over the Yamuna River. Everyone just fell asleep. That was how they were spellbound. And so that Yoga Maya retained itself right up to the point after Vasudeva made the exchange with the babies, left the boy with Nanda and Yashoda, picked up the girl, and then brought that baby girl back to the prison. And as soon as he put down the baby, and the shackles went back on his hands, at least, I don't know if there's something on his ankles. As soon as that happened, click, Yoga Maya switched off, and everybody woke up, And there was a sound of a baby crying, and Kamsa woke up and said, this is the child, this is it. This is the child that will be my death. So he came up and entered into the prison, and Devaki was making a plea, don't do this, It's not the prophecy that we heard. It's supposed to be a male child. This is a girl, etc., etc. So Kamsa took this baby girl, and he was ready to dash it against the floor. Like, you can imagine what that would do for a young newborn. Crush the skull, whatever that was his intent. He was so self-conscious. He went up like this, and the baby slipped out of his hand and went up into the sky, and she manifested herself as Durga. And then she looked down at him, you rascal, and gave him a licking, I guess you could say. So these are instances of Yoga Maya, And where one is under the influence of a spiritual illusion, most of us are under material illusion as we are in the neophyte position. We are still beginning. We are beginning, we may be growing, but we still have a long road to tread. We still have a ways to go. And we were looking at some quotes yesterday about clarity. Author unknown, but one person said is that clarity comes when you get sober. More clarity comes when you get older. And that is true for those who lead the clean life, the sattvic life. If our life is tainted with all kinds of substances and so on, then there will not be clarity, there will be a kind of a cloudiness. So the people who are liberated, the Uttamadhikaris that are, many of whom are addressed here, they are under some kind of a cloud, but it's a spiritual cloud. It's a bhakti cloud. You know? When I go to South Africa every year, we have, at the Rath Yatra, they have a tent which is devoted mostly to youth, and they call it the Bhakti Cloud tent. And I guess you can extrapolate some ideas why they named it that, but it's a fun tent. It's probably the most fun tent of all. They have a lot of stalls there for food, and a lot of it is junk food, spiritual junk food. Does that make any sense? Is that an oxymoron or what? But yeah, pizzas and French fries and everything that's bad for you. That's what they sell over there. And they also have biryani. But they also have a tent, which is dedicated to the youth, the Bhakti Cloud. You know? So when you are immersed in Bhakti, you can be influenced by something that's higher than we could ever experience. And we call it Yoga Maya. And this is the case for Vasudeva Devaki, and who never really had the chance to enjoy Krishna's pastimes in the same way that Yashoda and Nanda did. They were in exile. Krishna had been transferred, and they had never had a chance to develop that parental love that you say they should have deserved to have. But it came later on. Now with this meeting at Kurukshetra, everybody came together. It was a family reunion. And as we were reading yesterday also, it was the Pandavas and the Kauravas that came, because they are part of the bigger family. They all were a family, but they split up. It became a family feud. Yes. Prabhupada, during the time that Prabhupada was with us, we experienced amongst our spiritual family a feud. What was the term that he used? Was it a family? Fratricidal war. He actually called it a fratricidal war. And are any of you familiar with what period we went through at that time? Fratricidal war. Okay, I'll tell you then. We had members of the Radha Damodar party, and they're traveling all over North America, and they're making devotees, distributing a lot of books. But they got this notion that we are the ones that are doing all the work. And the temples are somewhat in Maya, you know. There's also something there called women, and they're in Maya. And if you stay at a temple where there's women, you're in Maya. And if you're a grihastha, you're married to a woman, you're in Maya. So if you're a woman or you're a man who supports women, then you're in Maya. So you deserve something better. This was the philosophy. I was part of the brahmachari team. We traveled south and we met up with the Radha Damodar team. And they were talking to our head brahmachari, his name's Giri Jadava, you went to see him once, and said, you should give up your temple, just travel with us, and like that. So Giri Jadava was put in tears because that's not what he understood. Anyways, there's a big rift between temple presidents and the Radha Damodar party, or the brahmacharis. And some grahastas got duped. They actually left their household temporarily and joined the team. They realized, well, that wasn't realistic. So there was a lot of complaints from temple presidents, and they brought it up to Prabhupada's level. And then he decided from then on, okay, we'll have a body of people, a committee of temple presidents, and they will have a say in management. Wasn't just GBC, but it was, mostly men at that time, who would help to offer fairness in dealings within our society. So Prabhupada had charged the main sannyasi, who was responsible for the Radha Damodar party, for creating a fratricidal war. Said, therefore, I will send you to China. So China was not an easy place, hard nut to crack. And so that attitude towards the fair gender and so on like that infiltrated here, all over in Canada, especially US and Canada. And to some degree maybe Europe as well. And it was a very difficult time for us somehow. The women who were living in the temple here, they were told to have their own place. So they moved out of the building, and it was so. So anyways, Prabhupada settled the whole matter. And then the women came back, and all the men and the women got married to each other. The first year that we moved here, we had a bigger building now. And then the next phase, after being so austere, being so disciplined at 187 Gerrard Street, with 40 members living in the temple, now there was a little more space, a little more, breathing space, and everyone thought, okay, well, you can marry this person. So anyways, some arranged marriages around. I'll tell you a story about myself, okay? So one day our temple president came to see me. I was down in the prasada room. And, everybody was getting married. All the brahmacharis were getting married to the brahmacharinis. And I was one of the last persons left. And then the temple president was saying, so Bhaktimarga, I need to talk to you about something. I need to talk to you about something that is something that Prabhupada would want to have done, And I knew what he was going to talk about. Everyone in the temple had some idea who was matched up to who. And they had this idea of be matched up to somebody, one of the girls. And then, so he was just about ready to open, say, so what it is, and then someone was yelling for the temple president, and he got distracted, and he went away, and he never brought up the subject again. So I was spared. Hare Krishna. So, anyways, we're talking about divisions, things that divide us a little bit. There's always sectors. Even when it comes to devotion, all devotees are good, but we find that some devotees are kanishta, some are madhyam, and some are uttam. What's the difference between them? The kanishta are the ones that are not so developed in their spiritual realization. Their cultivation still has a long way to go. And they have reverence towards the deities, less reverence towards the devotees. We know that that's not the right approach. And they have these particular traits about them that shows that they're not very progressed. A madhyam adhikari, or a madhyam devotee, is somebody who honors the Lord, has great respect for the devotees, and especially establishes peership, like camaraderie. Also, we'll see another division. He'll say, oh, these are innocent people out there. Let me approach them and let me share Krishna consciousness with them. And then there's another category which is recognized by people in that field. They'll say, oh, these people are very demonic. They're very, let's say, not ready to take up devotional service. As we read in the morning, the 10 offenses, 1 offenses. Don't say too much about the glories of the sacred sound, the holy name. if somebody's very inimical, and there are inimical people out there. So to such persons, a Madhyama Adhikari will say, I'm not going to spend any time with those persons. It's a waste. They're like venom, you say something about God. So then you have finally Uttamadhikari. And Uttamadhikari is somebody who has a different view on things. And Uttamadhikari is somebody who says, well, listen, everybody's a devotee. Everybody's spiritual. We say that of all levels of worship, Vishnu worship is the top. And more important than Vishnu worship is worship of his devotee. Okay? So where does that leave most of the people, most of the population? Well, one way to look at them is to try to see them as devotees as well. Nityasiddha Krishna Prema, Shadikavanai. That's from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And that means that love of God, Krishna Prema, is seated deeply into the heart of all souls. Love is in everybody. Love is everywhere. And even if it doesn't show itself, it's not a self-demonstration of love, but rather the other side, monsters, Somehow deep down inside, there is something good in everybody. It's just that some people have been, they didn't have a great upbringing, or they just took some bad turns in life, and they got all shook up. As Elvis would say, I'm all shook up. I'm sure he's talking about some romance thing. But people are traumatized. Modes of material nature have worked them very hard and done a number on them. And so it's very hard to find people who are on that pure platform to see Krishnas everywhere. But we have to go there. We have to try to get there, to that level of consciousness. Do not look on the black spots, the dark spots, but look at what's clean and what's pure and what's white. There was the very famous, for decades, everyone went shopping at Honest Ed's. Is that anybody know Honest Ed's? Yeah, and a Torontonian would know. And everyone went there. I've shopped there. Why? Because it's cheap. They have end-of-the-line products. So you might go to the bed sheet, the linen department, and find that there's a little flaw, a defect in that, in that bed sheet, that white bed sheet. It's got a little spot on it, and you can't take it off. So some people say, "Oh, I won't buy that," because it's got a defect. Or you go for some Chinaware, and there's a little deal, they call it fiasco. You know what fiasco means? It's an Italian word that for people who are blowing glass, and there would be some defect, and that's called a fiasco. So fiasco means when there's a flaw. Anyways, we're all fiascos, aren't we? We're all flawed. We come into this world influenced by the three modes, influenced by ego, and so on and so forth. And but yet, through the process of bhakti, we're supposed to get clean. We're supposed to get purified, go for a purger. And it's emphasized very much by Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to get clean. Chaito Darpanam Marjanam Pavamahadavagnan Nirvapanam. That's the verse we are looking at today from the Shikshastakam. We have to get clean. And then first go for clarity, and then cleanliness will come. So, can we say that such enlightened souls as Vasudev is under some kind of illusion? Well, not the illusion that we know, but definitely under some kind of spiritual spell. It's a SS, Whereas those of us who are not yet there and have a great distance to travel, we are influenced very largely by illusion, by Maya. Narada Muni, people like him, come along and they give clarity to a situation. Sometimes because he is very advanced he also throws curveballs. And you said, what? He squealed, and he told everyone, he reminded Kamsa that Vasudeva shouldn't be let to go. You know, that you got to be weary of this Vasudeva. Let me tell you another thing, Narada said. The demigods are taking birth. They're all over the place. That's a threat to you. You know that, don't you? These are followers of Narayan. And it was Narayan or Vishnu who killed you in a previous life. So you better watch out. And then Kamsa took those heatings, said, okay, all right, get that Vasudeva, let's arrest him, and something like that. He was in bad company, bad advisors. You know? If you're going to be a king, have good administrators next to you. Have people who are going to give you the right advice, so they can, in this way, they can excel and themselves make spiritual progress. Kings or political leaders, they also have a chance. They also have a chance to become good persons, to become saintly. They actually have a chance, even though they are caught up in a very ugly system. But you know, Raja Rishis, a term that's used by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, means saintly kings. That means they were trained. All kings in the Vedic time, they went through intensive Gurukul training. It was intensive. It was not like, what do they call Spartans? The Spartan training, the kids beating up each other and just getting tough that way. No, they had their training, their physical training, but there was a lot of love that was injected into their system. And that's the difference between, you know, Vedic Kshatriyism and non-Vedic Kshatriyism. So it is possible for political figureheads to have some piety in them. It just takes a lot of training. A lot of work has to be invested in persons that come from that particular background. And as much as Brahmanas also they go for a lot of training, a lot of study, swadhyaya, it's called. Verse memorization, knowing how to do yagyas, and knowing how to deal with people, showing proper respect, and, you know, all those things that are considered human. And their interest was to cultivate the 26 qualities of a devotee. That we find in chapter 16, in the first 3-4 verses of Bhagavad Gita. Anybody know the title of that chapter? Yeah, divine and demoniac nature, yeah. So in verse 1, if you get a little time today, I would just encourage you to look at the first 3 verses of chapter 16. And this is where you're going to find the qualities of a divine person. Verse 4 is all about the demonic traits. And what's really kind of redeeming, and let's say hopeful, is that there's 26 qualities to a divine person. And then there's certain traits that are more on the negative side, and they're very amplified as negative. And there's about 4 or 5 that are mentioned. So there's much more to the makeup of an enlightened soul as opposed to the crass nature of a demonic person. Hare Krishna. So Shinu, what's really nice about this event is that all the great people came together. It is like a Rath Yatra. You know it, Rath Yatra time. There's no drugs. There's no alcohol. There's no illicit sex at this 2-day event that we have here. It's all clean. Going back a few years ago, we had some Sri Lankan boys that were going to start, there were a couple of gangs that came, you know, and they were going to start a fight. And that was quickly deterred before it got anywhere. But other than that, it's a pretty clean program. And was Prabhupada's intent. Have a party, have a clean party. I'll drink to that. Are there any, what time do we have now? Because at 8:15 what is it?
7 past.
7 past. Does anybody have any comments or questions? Anything that has
At this point,
lit up your bulb?
Vasudev, is he aware he's Krishna's father? At this point?
That came to be known later, yes. Yeah, I mean here. We had talked about that a little bit before, when did it actually transpire? And Gargamuni, the astrologer, the priest, the family priest, was able to tell a lot about what's going on. Especially, he announced it to Nanda Maharaj. He was shocked. Okay, so I guess we can end it there. And because we have to do a broadcast to another part of the world.